Welcome to part 3 of our Design to Code series. We're going to continue on from where we left off. In the last video, we did design the header, and if we take a look at our mock, everything looks great with our header. Now it's time to move on to the banner. So we're going to be importing these 3 images, creating this text in the center, adding the scroll down, and if we have enough time in this video, we'll get to the visual artist and photographer. If not, we'll add this to our next part. So like I had mentioned in part 1 of our series, I am going to add starter files in the description. This is because we are using images and I don't necessarily want you to go and have to find them and resize them to the specific size that I have on the screen. Now we're mainly going to be working in our banner.js, which is not yet created. So let's go ahead and create a new file and just call this banner.js. And we are creating this file within our components folder. And in here, we are just going to do import React from React. We are also going to be using Gatsby image, so go ahead and import image from Gatsby image. And we're also going to need GraphQL and use static query from Gatsby, so go ahead and make sure that those are imported as well. And we're importing these from Gatsby. Go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and create our banner component. So just do const banner, give it an anonymous function, and let's do return. And for now, we'll just return a p tag. It says hello. Actually, if I save this, it's going to format into, actually that's fine. Let's not worry about that, no big deal. So we need to export default banner. Now let's go ahead and import banner in our index.js. So we can just copy our header and then change header to banner and change the directory to banner instead of header. And then finally, just change the header component to a banner component. And now what should happen is we should get an error. Did I do something wrong? Let's save this. Oh, I put too many ends. Get rid of that. The only reason it's up here is because our navigation is set to an absolute position, but we'll fix that here in a sec. Let's go ahead back into our banner.js, and since we are using Gatsby image within our banner.js, let me just jump into image.js here. And what we're going to do is copy the schema that they have, and we're going to utilize this rather than necessarily needing to write our own. But for now, let's just create the JSX first. Go ahead and get rid of the hello. And in here, let's just create a div with the class name of banner. And inside the banner, we're going to create a div for our container. So give it a class name of container. And I mentioned that we're not going to use a row, but for our banner, we kind of need to. But this is going to be unique just for our banner. So let's do class name row. And the first div we'll be creating within the row is that large text that's stretched down the middle. So it's adobe donsi. What we're going to do is just write a div with the class name and just set this to main-text. And just go ahead and write whatever it is that you need to write. So I'll just go ahead and write adobe donsi. Let's go ahead and save this and then create the styles for this. And then we'll add our images with Gatsby image. Let's go ahead and close some tabs and open up style.scss. Let's view what we've got. We've got the container working and we've got the name up here. But let's scroll down and create a section for our banner. And so let's create that schema. We have .banner. Inside the banner, we have a row. And then inside that row, we have the main-text. So the banner is going to have a display of flex. We're going to align the items to center. We're setting a background color of white. We're going to give this a position relative. Since the banner is children, some of them might need to have absolute positions. And then finally set the height to our banner to 100 VH, which is viewport height. And for our row, all we're going to do is just set position relative. Honestly, you can name this anything you want. It isn't your typical row that comes with your containers. Those usually use flexbox and have a margin left and right of a negative number. So in our main.text, this one's going to be a little bit lengthy because there's a lot going on. we are adding a lot of letter spacing, making it large, the font size, and adding that difference to create those colors. So set the font size to this one. Let's do 5.8 rem. The text-transform, we want it all uppercase. So go ahead and do uppercase here. Next, we have letter spacing, which is fairly large, so it's going to be 42 pixels. The font weight needs to be set to 700. Our color is going to be white. I know it's black on the mock, but we are using a difference of the max blend mode. So that's going to do the opposite effect, depending on whatever the background color is. And if you notice that we set the background color to white, even though the body is white, this is why. Set the position to absolute. Our width is going to be 100%, so it could stretch across our container. And then a left of 0 and a top of 50%. And then we're going to do a little trick to center our absolute positioned element vertically. We need to set the top to 50% like we did. And then we need to do a transform of translate Y and set that to -50% to bring it back. And it's going to be centered. Then we're just going to do text align, center, so that can be centered in the middle horizontally. And then finally add a mix blend mode of difference. And then we're going to add a z-index. Let's do 9. We don't want it over our header, but we want it above our images that we'll be adding in a sec. Next, since we are working on a larger screen here, we do need to make sure our smaller screens do look good. So I'm only going to use a large screen, and this screen that I'm working on right now is 1920 pixels. I am going to only really use a media query for our 1440. If you want to go ahead and add more media queries, if you're working on a smaller device, go ahead and do that, but I won't be making this project responsive. So add a max width of 1440 pixels, and in here we're going to set the font size to 4.4 rem, making our font size smaller, and the letter spacing, we're going to lower it down to 36 pixels. Save that, and if we preview what we have, you can see we've got our large text stretching across the screen, and it is black, even though we specifically told it that it's going to be white. The reason it's black is because our mix blend mode. Next thing we're doing is adding our image. So jump into banner.js and let's create a div with the class name of main image. I know I'm really creative with these naming conventions for our classes. You don't need to let me know. So main image, we are using Gatsby image. Gatsby is showing us how we can use Gatsby image. So it's creating its own image component, and typically we'll just call in the image component and we'll be fine because it's returning the Gatsby astronaut.png, and the Gatsby astronaut.png it can be found here in our images. We don't necessarily need to tell it where the path is. It's using a relative path or a file of relative path, knowing that our image folder is right here. So anything within the image folder, all we need to specify is the image name. Now, this is cool, and we could just call the component which will return the image here. But the issue here is that we're rendering multiple images. So we don't want to necessarily just use an image component. What we want to do is query the data and list out different ones. So let's use Gatsby image where we can render out multiple images. To do that, what we're going to use here is we're just going to use the variable data. So let's copy this GraphQL query that it makes. So just grab everything here, copy this, and inside banner.js within the banner component, go ahead and drop in const data with the useStatic query in GraphQL. From here, we can see we're trying to call in the Gatsby astronaut.png. So for now, I'm only going to return that one image. Let's go ahead and jump in back to our image.js, and we can copy this image div. Go ahead and go back into banner.js in here, and then just drop in the image div right here. Now, if we save this, what's going to happen is going to return the Gatsby astronaut PNG, which is, let me see if it loads. This image right here, but it's going to return it using Gatsby image. So if I just show you here, it's got the entire image loaded because we haven't specified a width for it. But if we refresh, you could see that lazy loading and that blur loading happening. And if we open up the Google console and inspect the elements, we could see the Gatsby image wrapper It's basically forwarding our image, and then it's also giving us responsive sizes and just different widths for our image. So it's doing the heavy lifting here, and it's definitely the way to go when you're trying to reduce load time on your site. So let's close this. What I'm going to do is import those 3 images that we're going to use and get rid of these 2 Gatsby images. So I have our 3 images. We have the diamonds.png, the pop-in shades PNG, and the sexy orange. Close this out and close the PNG out for our Gatsby image. Let's first render out our pop-in shades. So instead of Gatsby astronaut, we can just replace this with pop-in-shades. And for our placeholder image, we can replace this with whatever we want it. So we're just going to do, let's access both. We're going to call this pop-in shades and review the reflected changes. We can see our image loading, filling up that entire container really from top to bottom. Wow. Let's fix that. So we have the main image and we have it returning our Gatsby image, which is the pop-in shades. In style, that's SCSS. Let's adjust this. So outside of our main text, we can add a class of main-image. We can set the width of the main-image to 536 pixels with a margin of 0 auto. Let's add a media query, and the media query is going to be specific to any viewport that has the max width of 1440 pixels. Let's set the width of the image to 436 pixels. And if we save that and view the changes, we can see we have our main image in the center with the text in the middle as well. Now, what we could do next is add in our 2 other images. So let's go ahead and do that. Back in our banner.js, what we could do is we can copy this pop-in shades 2 more times and then just change it to where anytime we access a property of orange or like the sexy orange or the diamonds one, we're going to return the Gatsby image version of that file. What we can do is just copy the pop-in shades here and rename pop-in shades to, let's just do diamonds, and change the PNG to diamonds as well. Save that, and we could do this again by copying the diamonds and changing diamonds to orange and bringing in sexy orange .png. Save that, and then just based off structure of how it's laid out, we're going to have the diamonds image on the left and then the orange on the right. So it kind of just makes more sense if we add the diamonds image first. So let's go ahead and do a div with the class name of side-image, and we can specify this by adding another class of left, and we can just copy the Gatsby image for our pop-in shades, place it in the side image left, and then change pop-in shades to where we access the diamonds. Save that, and then we can just copy this one, and then this will be our last div item within our row. So we can just paste that in and change the side image left, change the class name to right, and also change the endpoints from diamonds to orange, just so we can access our sexy orange image. Save that. And if we preview our file, it's going to be really bad. It's just all layered on top of each other, but we are pulling in the right image. So if we refresh, we can see they all blur up. Let's go back in our styles, and outside of the main image div, let's add a side-image, and this will reflect to both images. So the side image is going to have a width of 260 pixels, a position of absolute. And if we save this, we can see it reflected both changes. Then we are going to get a little more specific. So first, let's add a media query. And like I said, all media queries are going to be specific to the 1440 pixel. And we're going to set the width of our images to 208 pixels. Now, in terms of getting specific, we are going to add an ampersand. And for our left class, we are going to give it a left of 168 pixels and a top of 12 pixels. And we can copy the end left and just change this to ampersand right. And then outside of the left class, we're going to do an ampersand of right. and change this to a right of 168 pixels. And instead of the top of 12, we're going to do a bottom of 12 pixels. So what this will do is for our side image, which was both image, it's going to give it a width of 260 and position absolute. And then whichever element has a side image class and a left class, it's going to have these. And then if a div element has a right class, it's going to have these styles. Now we are going to add a media query for both left and right. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do a media for 1440. And the only thing changing here is the left and the right. It's going to be 128 pixels instead of the 168. Just make sure for the right you do change the right and leave the left to the left. Go ahead and save this, and if we preview what we have so far, we can see we are getting there in terms of having the banner. Now, last thing I'm going to do is add that scroll now so that we can go ahead and scroll, and then this will conclude for this video and we can move on to the next section in the next video. So jump in back to banner.js, and outside of the row div, we are going to create another div, and it's just going to be called scroll. Go ahead and give it a class name of scroll. And inside the scroll div, we're just going to create a span, and it's just going to say scroll down. Save this, go back into styles, and then find the row, and then whatever the last bracket is, go ahead and do a dot scroll and set the font weight to 700. The font size is going to be 0.875 rem. It's going to have a text decoration of none. We're giving it letter spacing of 1.5 pixels. The color is black. The text dash transform is uppercase, and we're also going to give it an absolute position. And finally, it's going to have a bottom of 48 pixels. Save that, and we can see the scroll down labeled on the bottom left. Now, since we did add the Gatsby image within our banner.js, we could just get rid of image.js since we don't need this. So that's going to do it for this video. We did finish the banner and added our images in. In our next video, we're going to go ahead and add the visual artist photographer text on the right side of the screen and finish it with the ability to create. On our last video, which I believe is going to be part 4 or 5, we're just going to be adding the video as well as the footer section that also has these companies that featured his work. If you did enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and look out for part 4. Have a wonderful day.